Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am the stepson of Krypton,
And I'm Antis.
and today we are talking about Mantis's innocence lost. No, we're talking about
It's gone.
Paradise Lost. He lost that back in summer camp when he was 7.
Yeah.
Was he
Yeah.
your Scoutmaster, Kevin?
To show you something. Something huge.
That's what Scoutmaster Kevin used to say.
Like Deadpool has?
I've got a pending lawsuit I can't talk about, so.
All right, well, we'll stay clear of that because I don't want to get canceled because we already do enough things to get us canceled on there. But we are going to discuss Paradise Lost, the upcoming series. We don't have a lot of updates on it yet, but the upcoming series that is going to give us a little more insight into Wonder Woman and her past and the Themyscirian past. So, Mantis, are you ready to get into some Wonder Woman?
I want to get way up in there.
All right. Let's dive deep into some Wonder Woman and let's. Okay, guys. So James Gunn announced a while back ago about Paradise Lost, which is going to be a prequel story for Wonder Woman. Now, with that being said, we haven't got a lot of information about Paradise Lost like we have the Lantern series. Obviously, we have just done videos on the announcement of Kyle Chandler as the Hal Jordan for Lanterns, and then Aaron Pierre as the new Jon Stewart for the Lanterns. We have yet to get a lot of information on Paradise Lost and even who James Gunn has in mind for a Wonder Woman. However, today, we were just talking about this before we jumped on a video here. James Gunn was asked, not today, but the article came out today, about what are the plans for releases, how many movies, TV shows, and everything we're going to get a week or a year like we do with the MCU. Disney has kind of stated how many they want to release. And one thing James Gunn said, I don't know, Mantis, do you kind of want to go over what he said?
Well, I saw the quote for it because I guess a reporter had asked him, are you guys still on? Are we getting 3 DC movies a year? Is that kind of what we're talking about? And he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but obviously no.
How about no, Scott?
It was a definitive no. That is not the case. Because like you said, we were talking about this before we started this video. Like one of the things that was kind of frustrating, I think, from the previous, I don't want to say
administration,
administration. That's a good term of the previous administration of the DC Studios, DCEU, whatever you want to call it. Was it felt like there was no plan, especially when it's very comparable to the MCU. It's those two go up against each other. It's what you're going to compare each other to, and the MCU had a plan, a very good plan, and they stuck to it and went through it, and it did well for them. How their movies intertwine and the release schedules and all of that. And I think James Gunn is approaching this as a process. He has a process he wants to follow, and it has to kind of fall into this category before it even gets onto the next phase. In my job, we're working through project management and stuff, and I'm sure that they do the same thing. It's like this thing has to happen before the rest of this goes on. And particularly not from what you're talking about, but this is regarding the Paradise Lost thing, but also kind of attributes to his mindset and the mindset and their approach in how they do movies and scripts. He was quoted as saying, "Nothing is in production unless it's been greenlit." And right now, that's Superman, Supergirl, Penguin, Peacemaker, Lanterns, and a handful of the animated projects that we've kind of discussed previously. But Paradise Lost, like many other titles, known and unknown, is still in very active development. It will be in production once we have a script or scripts we think are great and ready to shoot. And never... That's not going to happen before. They're not going to greenlight anything until they have a script that's good, and they're ready in production. So I think that's very reassuring to hear. And I know everyone thinks we just jerk off James Gunn left and right, but if there is one thing that aside from anything else that we've seen in interviews or released photos from sets and possible hirings and all this nonsense, man, it just makes me feel good that at least they have a process in place and they're going to follow it.
Well, here's the thing. The MCU had a very good process in place, and regardless of whether you're a Marvel or a DC fan, we're both, right? I like both. I
Yeah,
love
for
DC. I
sure.
do love Marvel. Marvel when it's Marvel and it sticks to its roots, right? But both have stumbled lately, and realistically, they both stumbled because they either went off process or they never had one to begin with. Marvel had a very clear plan with the first three phases, and they did very, very well. Everything flowed very well. It allowed for very good Avengers movies. And when you got to Captain Marvel, that was the first deviation from the plan that it felt like, and it showed in the movie, right? People were very
Oh yeah.
confused. Granted, it did over $1 billion. Not going to say it didn't, but people were very confused because now other shows didn't make sense. Agents of Shield didn't make sense. So it was very confusing. It was very odd for a franchise that had been so meticulous in the release schedule, and again, the plan, the process they had. Then you had when you come over to the DCEU, they're just trying to catch up to Marvel, right? They're like, we got to release an Avengers level movie, so we're gonna like rush to a Justice League. Uh, so they didn't have a plan at all. They were kind of just they're being very reactive instead of proactive. And my job, I always try to preach to everybody. I'm like, you need to be proactive. Don't wait until there's a problem. Go ahead. You know that this could be. Go ahead and take care of it proactively. No, they reacted. And usually, when you make those knee jerk reactions to things like that, they end badly. Hence why we don't have a DCEU anymore.
Yeah, it was not like we have a plan and process and we're going to stick to that. They just threw that out the window as soon as they saw something Marvel did. You can't. I mean, in my opinion, you can't change the way you make movies and the way you write things and the way you do things based on another company and what they do. It has nothing to do with your stories, with your environment, with your universe. And you're right. It seems like some things went awry there. I think obviously we talked about it before with Justice League and whatnot. But that aside, there were still things that happened and decisions that were made that just didn't make sense. And I again, I hopefully they stick to this process and they don't get caught up. I don't think they will. And James Gunn was like, well, we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll put two out. It just depends on how much work we get done. He's not even putting a timeline on this. He didn't say, well, there'll be one a year or, there'll be this, that. There's no timeline on any of this stuff. It's literally, we get the script. If we think it's good enough, then it's greenlit. It goes in production and shooting. If it's not good enough, it gets rejected. There's stuff. I mean, even this Paradise Lost that we're talking about, it may just get canned because the script's not good enough.
Well, and I think that's one thing when you think about like what they're doing, okay, with the lanterns with Paradise Lost, right? They're really wanting to focus on backstory because James Gunn and Mantis is a very big fan of this part. James Gunn has said these movies aren't going to be origins, right? We're basically dropped into a universe in progress. There's no origin stories to a lot of these characters. Where now you're going to for the Green Lanterns. We've said many times on a lot of videos we've done on this channel that one thing that hurt the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds from 2011 was it was too much to try to pack into one movie. Especially for a first movie, right? Like Avengers Endgame could get away with being 3 hours because it was this culmination of 27 other movies.
Yes.
Whereas,
Yeah.
you can't just bring a brand new character in off the streets like Green Lantern and have a 3-hour movie because you got to tell all this backstory. It wasn't going to work and make a good villain. So they rushed everything and it went very poorly. Whereas now they don't have to do that in Superman and whatever else that's the, Green Lantern related project movie wise that they're going to have. You're going to be able to tell all the backstory of the Green Lanterns through the Lantern series. And it's the same thing with the Amazons and going to Themyscira. Like you'll be able to tell a lot of that backstory without clogging down a movie with 30 or 40 minutes of backstory when people really, they came here they want to see Wonder Woman, right? Especially Gal Gadot. We wanted to see her. Not in the way 2 did it, not in the Wonder Woman 84, but we wanted to see her similar to what we saw there in the first movie. So it's great that they're doing these series to fill in the backstory and the gaps of what people don't know about these particular groups of characters. And then I think all of us, I can speak for me as a fan. I believe I can speak for Mantis on this too. I would rather a movie take an extra year or 2 years even, but come out good, than you take one of a character that I like, or especially if it's one I love, and rush it and screw it up. I don't want
Oh,
to
for
see
sure.
that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that goes. We're definitely in agreement there, and kind of what you touch on what you said about the Paradise Lost, because that's essentially what this video is going to be about. But we can kind of discuss what this series is supposed to be about. From what we know, again, this is basically serving as a prequel story to Wonder Woman, because like you said, we didn't get to see much of it. A few flashbacks here and there was some stuff also in Justice League you got to see a little bit, but it was also a title that was announced way back in January 2023, and here's what's been quoted as being described as a Game of Thrones type of story about the Mascara. So it will involve all of the darkness, drama, political intrigue behind the society of only women. As we know, Mascara is only women. As you know, when she finds what's his Chris Pine's character wash up, that that they had never seen a man. Well, some of them hadn't, and it was kind of a shock almost. So it's a very interesting concept. I'll say that. I love Game of Thrones. I know you love Game of Thrones. I just wonder how that's going to translate into this. But it's a very interesting, like cookie cutter, like template that they're going to place this story in, where you have a Game of Thrones type thing, and you're putting this superhero aspect into it. And again, at this point, no cast members have been attached to Paradise Lost. It's still unknown if Wonder Woman's even going to be in this series. So I would count on that. There's not anything been mentioned that Gal Gadot's coming back as woman, or coming back as Wonder Woman, let alone Wonder Woman's even going to be in this series. So I'm intrigued by it. I like Wonder Woman. I like Game of Thrones. It's interesting. There's never been anything done, at least that I can think of, like this before. So, sounds interesting to me.
I think if you're going to do a series, especially exploring kind of more of the roots of Themyscira, again, whether we go political, whether it's an island of a bunch of catty bitches, we don't know, right? Like, if you're going to go that, sorry, I'm just now canceled. If you're going to go that, Mantis, you usually say the thing to get somebody canceled, so I had to do it this time. But if you're going to go that route, I think we need to do it almost like House of the Dragon style, like do it in the past before Wonder Woman. Maybe you start to see, because I would love to see is eventually maybe it could be the climax of the series, is where you see her origin. Supposedly she believes she was made of clay, and then brought to life. She was made of clay from Zeus and brought to life. That was right. But like to finally see her origins, and maybe a little bit as her of a kid. Other than that, I'd kind of like to keep Wonder Woman out of it. Give us some of the origins on Themyscira and the Amazons and some of the gods. It'd be cool to see some of the gods in there, right?
That's perfect.
It's got to be, obviously she's old. She doesn't age like a mere mortal. She's a demigod, but do it way back in the past, right? I want a separation. But then again, if you see her as a kid, maybe towards like second, third season, whatever you want to do, show her as a kid, and then the movies we're going to pick up where she's an adult. I would like to see that.
Yeah, you could, and it's an interesting concept too. What you could do is some type of they did it in the Arrow, where there's a lot of flashbacks of the island in the Arrow. You could do it where you have a young version of Wonder Woman, just like they did in the films, a younger version of Wonder Woman, and her mom or whatever, or people around her are flashing back to, the whole episode. Maybe just the episode starts with 5 minutes of young Wonder Woman, right? And the main portion, 45 minutes to 50 minutes of the episode, is literally what happened in the past. And then the next episode, it starts off again. You just start off right where young Wonder Woman was left off in the first episode, but it's only lasts like 3 minutes. And it's like this flashbacky thing where it ties the past to the current thing. I don't know. I'm rambling here, but there's some cool things that you could do with that. And if you're trying to tie Wonder Woman in it and not necessarily have Gal Gadot in it,
My name is Diana Prince. I've been stranded on this island for 18 years. She's gonna go exactly like Arrow.
Yeah.
I've dreamt of my rescue every cold night since.
I've been stranded here for 5 years. I've dreamt of my rescue every cold black night since then.
It's just like do exactly like Arrow.
Yeah.
Diana Prince is alive, and they go into like that would be
Yeah.
cool. But no, I think that would be cool because Arrow was one of the only shows, if not the only. But I'm trying to think, but off the just off the top of my head, because again, we don't script these shows. We are literally doing this off the cuff. We don't rehearse anything. So when I say Arrow is one of the only shows, or if not the only show, I think of that did 5 seasons worth of flashbacks because we had to get
Every
all
single
5
season.
years. Every season
It's
was
all
the next
flashback.
year that he was on the island or in other areas, but you know what I mean. Like the second year of his disappearance, the third year, which I thought was it was a cool way to be able to flash back. Now, I didn't particularly care when they went into the future and they were flashing forward, but the flashbacks I thought was a cool way to kind of tie things in and make it make sense. It got a little more difficult because it's a TV show on the CW, so you didn't really have a plan, or at least they didn't think it was going to go that far. So like some of the things that he said from season 1 or 2, maybe by 3 or 4, you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought this didn't happen. They had to say, oh, I was just keeping this from you. It's in my dark past. And it's what's keeping me troubled, so maybe not do that. But I do like the idea of, okay, maybe we got a teenage Diana, or like she's getting ready to want to leave the island Diana, and it's flashing back to her childhood or even before her childhood. Like her mom has flashbacks of the wars and things that have gone on and everything. I think that could be really, really interesting way to kind of tell the story of Themyscira, the Amazons, and even young Diana, and still see a Wonder Woman, but then she's going to be aged. Maybe you use the same one you're going to use in the movie. Maybe you don't. That's going to be a decision that I don't make enough money to make those choices and decisions.
Yeah.
They don't want
Is that
to
the wrap it up music I hear?
I don't know. Is it? Well, with that music playing, that means it's time to go ahead and wrap things up. So, Mantis, final thoughts on your Paradise Lost.
Again, this whole 20 minutes that we've been talking about this, or however long, could have been null and void because, as James Gunn said, this stuff, he's just now getting scripts on his desk for this series, and as all the other movies and projects going on, they don't greenlight it until it's good to go from their point of view, and this one is not at this point. So it's just more speculation than anything, but it does give you insight into how James Gunn and Peter Safran are running the show, and I do appreciate there's a process and they're following it.
Well, my final thoughts, guys, I don't have a whole lot of final thoughts on this. What I do want, though, is I want your final thoughts, maybe even your first thoughts, maybe your middle thoughts. I don't care what order of thought they are. But here's the thing, guys, like with this, we don't have a lot of information. We wanted to do this video because there was some news on it, but it was really just saying what Mantis just told you in his final thoughts. So we speculate. We're not saying this is what this is what's going to happen and all this. We're just speculating on things that maybe we think is cool. Maybe you agree with us. Maybe you don't. If you don't, cool. We're all here for, different ideas, right? We come up with ideas and at first they seem cool. And then when you start to kind of think about it, you're like, oh, actually, no, that's kind of terrible. So let us know. Like, do you like any of those ideas came up, or what would you like to see? That's my bigger thing, is what would you like to see them take Paradise Lost if we're going to do kind of a prequel series? How would you like it to go? And what are you hoping they don't do? Like, what are you not wanting to see come out of this? So that's kind of my final take on that, if you want to call it final thoughts. However, last thing, if you have made it with us this far, we definitely do appreciate it. All of our subscribers, both new and ones that have been here with us since the beginning, if you have made it, consider giving this video a like. He's going to show you where. Subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on all the information we've got coming, with not only everything coming from James Gunn and the DCU and the Elseworlds timeline, but also the MCU. We do Marvel stuff as well. We try to be fair to both groups because we're just comic book and comic book movie nerds, right? We love all of it. So Well, not all of it. There's some things we could do without,
This is
but
good.
most of it. We're friends with some of it. So, Mantis, unless you have anything else.
No, don't forget to pay your electric bill this week.
I realized that I almost forgot to pay mine. It's like, we'll be doing the middle of this episode, all of a sudden everything just cuts out. Well, guess he forgot.
Did you forget to pay the electric bill? Do you realize what you've done?
I said we bail.
Did you pay the gas bill? Do you realize what you've done? I'm sorry. I said we bail.
And we are, right?
And we're off the rails. Good thing it's at the end.
Yeah.
Track.
That's what we do. So, all right, guys, that's going to wrap it for us here on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, we will see you then.
Later.